pretty extraordinary businessman. Been with quite a number of companies, and I'm going to interview him a little bit about that and have him tell a little bit of his story. Friends with some heads of state, with some of the more famous and infamous capitalist and business leaders in the world. And why, I'll start with this question, Vincent. By the way, Vincent is speaking to us, I believe, from Scotland. Where are you, Vincent, right now?
Yeah, Doug, I am currently in my sunroom at 3 a.m. in the morning, and I am in Scotland. You're correct, yeah.
Oh, no. We're going to mess up your schedule today for sure.
So there's not much sun. It's pretty dark out at this time of night.
Tell us why someone who's earning a salary of $250,000 a year, who's had your business experience all over Europe and North America, and why would you get involved?
Yeah, there's the million-dollar question, isn't it, really? Yeah, I got involved in network marketing, Doug, around about 20 years ago originally, and that was through the Amway business in the state of Michigan, originally from a small place in Michigan called Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. I left the Sioux, joined the U.S. Marine Corps, traveled around the world, ended up as a business manager for the Amway business in the United Kingdom. My wife is originally from the UK. And then I went through a series of corporate network marketing companies. Most of them have been corporate, support, back office type operations. And I've never really been in the field too much as an actual distributor, but I've always been around the people. I've always kind of had an affection for, the networkers themselves and the type of people that they are that comprise their character. And really, the simple answer is the economic downturns that have happened over the last, at least 5 years in the world, the global upturn, has really forced me to take a strong look at the networking industry again in terms of a plan B, a secondary source of income that's there, because I don't really, my personal belief is that it doesn't really make a difference how much money you actually make in the corporate world. It's never really secure. So I would recommend it for anyone who's really looking for a plan B income or even a replacement income.
Fascinating. Tell me about, I enjoy the pictures you send from time to time, and yep. We're going to get right into your network marketing philosophy, but
sure.
Why these pictures from all over the world, Africa, Asia, and tell us a little bit about your mountain climbing experience.
I'm not sure if you want to hear about that. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I came from a small town in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. I spent about 10 years of my life there. Immigrated out with my family out to Northern California in the San Francisco Bay Area in the 70s and 80s. And I've now traveled, and quite fortunate actually, quite grateful to travel in about 228 cities around the world that I've worked in and lived in across 30 countries. A lot of it have been corporate trips. A lot of it has been my days out at WorldCom when I worked with Bernie Evers. They sent us all around the world. I've worked in 12 European countries. A lot of it's just been adventure. I really do enjoy just traveling and seeing things in different places in the world, different cultures. Mountain climbing, yeah, I'm going to Mount Everest in November this year to do a charity climb. So wish me luck on that one. It's up to 20,000 feet.
What charity is that?
That's the Royal Hospital for Sick Children, the York Hill Foundation here in Glasgow, Scotland. And it's all the proceeds go to the hospital directly, so it's a good cause.
Amazing. And you've already done some mountain climbing. In fact, you and I met right after you signed up, and you had a mountain accident, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Just before, I can't remember.
It was literally just after I joined up, and it was April last year. And I was doing a climb in the Scottish Highlands. It's a mountain called Ben More. It's the second highest mountain in the UK. And it's about 4,000 feet. After summiting to the summit with 3 other climbers, there was a bit of bad weather, just freak weather, and it was in April, but there was still quite a lot of snow in the last 500 feet to the summit. And on the way down, I hit a sheet of ice and slipped and fell over a ledge. Fell about 100 feet. I hit the bottom and started rolling down the rocks, and I sustained some spinal injuries and a fractured knee and broken ribs, but was very fortunate to actually live from a fall from that altitude. I was airlifted off the mountain by the Royal Air Force, taken to hospital and hospitalized for about three months. And that's actually when I really started to think about network marketing. I really started to think, you have no security. If it's good to make over $250,000 a year, but if you can't, if in a corporate game, if you can't make it into work, if you can't make it into the office, technology is great, but after a certain point of time, your income will be replaced, or the board of directors will replace you. So I took a real strong look, recontacted you, and started to get relatively serious about the network marketing industry.
Very product driven, and we're very blessed because we have really good products that have a compelling narrative or story built around them, and
yeah.
It's very easy to get customers. It's ironic. It's the very reverse of the Amway experience. You can get customers easier than you can get business builders.
Yeah.
But so tell us a little bit about the value of system building with the CDs and the functions and the training, and what are the advantages of it for those of us who never were part of systems before?
Yeah, I think it's invaluable. I mean, I couldn't say enough about it, Doug. It's the training system that John Godzis had put together. It's world class. I've seen some good ones, and I've seen some pretty bad ones over the years. But it really is first class, and it's an invaluable thing. I mean, why would you want to try and go out there and do it yourself? As I talk to the distributors over here all the time, it's a case of gaining on the experience that you have, that John has, that other leaders have. And I'm a firm believer in it. It's a franchise system, really. You tap into that. You should listen to it, and it's just a shortcut, really, to success. You can do it your own way, or you can do it with the benefit of years of experience.
You've been involved in a number of different companies.
Sure.
What did you look for? Why did you finally choose it, and how? Give us a little comparison to some of the other companies you looked at, and what you liked or didn't like about those.
It's interesting. I was thinking about this on Sunday. I was on a conference call that I did on this Sunday last, and it was interesting how he talks about the integrity of the company, of founders, and he talks about he's 50 years to 100 years in the future having an opportunity, and you really can't believe this guy when you listen to him, that he's building for that type of generational growth, compared to some other companies that I've been involved in an IPO in the UK in the London Stock Exchange. We took a company in the height of the .com era to the stock market and raised $50 million US, but it was short term. Within 2 years, the .com bubble crashed, and it was all for nothing, really. So, the value of looking at longer term opportunities, and it was one of the reasons I look at. And the training system. There's an awful lot of network marketing companies out there, that have been, and I won't name them for integrity purposes, that have come over to Europe in the past, and categorically, they haven't made the investment, into the European marketplace or anywhere else in the world. And subsequently, they put their toe in the water, and they try and kind of build a network as such, but there's no real infrastructure there or real commitment. As you know, I've done my due diligence, as any business or corporate person would, looked at the audited accounts of the company, looked at the investment that they've put into Europe, and it's first class. They are here to stay, and they're here to build for, as I said, for 50, 100 years or beyond.
You're in Scotland, and
Yep.
I've sponsored you, and I'm in Washington, D.C. Talk to us a little bit about distance sponsoring. Can it work, and when it does work, how does it work, and what are the disadvantages, advantages, and challenges and opportunity related to building distant groups?
Yeah, that's a really good question, isn't it? I don't know the answer. I'll let you know when I go if it works or not. I think that, and I've done a little bit of this myself as well. As you know, I've kind of in the reverse sponsored some groups out in North America as well, starting to at the moment. And I think it works pretty well. I mean, a relationship is a relationship, depending on if it's good or it's bad. I'd like to think that ours is good. Sometimes with a distance sponsoring, it's actually a benefit, because there is this kind of time commitment. There's a value on the time, and when you do get your time on a three-way call, it's used better, more effectively. The downside is just obvious things like the time zones and whatnot, just trying to get folk available during the time zone that you're available, but that's all workable through technology now. It's much easier nowadays than it was 15 years ago, I think, to do it.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Here, I'm in Washington, D.C., and I sponsored you, and
Yeah.
you're in Scotland, and you sponsored just a couple of days ago someone in California, in
Sacramento, yeah.
So and we've got to get Michelle connected to. I don't know if Michelle's on the line tonight, but that's kind of neat. So
it's so much easier nowadays, isn't it, with Facebook and all the technology available. As long as you keep the focus on the relationship, the human aspect of it. But the tools are there nowadays more than ever to do it.
Now, talk to us about relationship. When you say to focus on relationship, what do you mean by that? And give us an example of when a distributor's not doing that.
God, there's a question. What I mean by that is I think it's key, it's paramount to, the business is one thing, there's the aspects, and we all have aspirations, but when you bring somebody new into your business, I think it's very key to sit down and find out their goals, their objectives, for lack of a better word, their dreams, what they want out of the business, and focus on that. You almost become a facilitator of a support network for them, and focusing on the relationship with them. It's not all about business, it's about what they're trying to achieve in life. There are examples where, even recently, you and I did a conference call, you probably don't remember this, Doug, but last year with a Welshman, successful business guy, runs a group.
I remembered. I was in California at the time.
That's right. Yeah.
Coffee house, and we had the conversation. I remember well. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And no, it's fine. And believe it or not, and timing was the issue there. He was interested. This was the wrong time. I literally had a cup of coffee with him yesterday morning in Glasgow. He's come back to me. He's looked at a couple other different network marketing companies out there, and he's now come back to us. So he's getting in as of tomorrow. So again, sometimes it's important to just let people go through their things in life, the cycle that they're going through, and if it's right for them, they'll come back to you.
Interesting. Timing can be so important, huh?
Absolutely, and it was almost a standoff approach. If you remember, we showed the opportunity. I believe that's all you can really do is show the opportunity, and if people are looking, and it's the right time in their life, they'll get involved.
Now, with Michelle, for example, and I don't know if she's a typical example of sponsoring someone, but give us a little bit of your philosophy of approach. Who do you approach, and and what do you say? Sure. And run us through that drill a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it's different, my approach. It's not always the same. It is different depending on who I'm talking to.
So it's very personalized, huh?
It is, yeah. I tailor it. I try to tailor it directly to that person's background, that person's set of circumstances, their economic, place in life, what they're looking for. Michelle was an old friend from high school, believe it or not, in Fairfield High School. I haven't seen this girl in 26 years. That's how long ago that person is on my list. But I believe you keep everyone on your list, and you show it to everyone, and really, like I said earlier, just let them make the decision. I'm not very picky, because somebody many years ago, networking, might have been you, Doug, I can't remember, but said you can't really look inside a person's head or inside their heart. We do too much prejudging in this business, and I think that's a huge mistake. We're just a facilitator of showing it, putting it out there, and then taking the response to see what people do with it. But
how did you even think of her if she comes from that far in the past?
Facebook. That's where she came from. Was off my Facebook friends list. I think it's a great tool. There's a couple thousand people in the friends list, and there's all sorts of groups out there. Where you were from, your hometown, what high school did you go to? The list is endless. I think now more than ever, through technology, there's no problem with creating a big list of people. Yeah. Then the approach was what you teach. If you recall, we did a three-way conference call, you, her, and I, about December this year, actually. about 6 months ago, and then put her on to John, which is what you teach. And again, timing wasn't right for her either at the time. And then the approach was she came back to us, you know.
And how did she come back to you? You didn't drop her from your list, obviously.
No, I never do. I never do at all. She came back through an email just saying that.
Stop just for a minute. Do you
Sure.
back away from them though? When
Yes, I do.
I see. Okay.
From a business point of view, and it's strange. The UK is slightly different. I know America well. I'm still a U.S. citizen and love the country. Happy 4th of July, by the way. A day late.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I feel you show the opportunity, and if it's right, people get in. They get in. Sometimes you've probably seen this as well, Doug. Sometimes people can get in at the wrong time as well. You show them the opportunity, they're enthusiastic, they get involved, and for some reason they fizzle out. So I almost, and I know it sounds kind of sublime, but I almost kind of like the people that take a bit of time to do some diligence. And I respect them if they say, look, the timing isn't right, but I'm interested in that, and I'll get back to you. And don't get me wrong, I do very subtly now and again, every maybe say 3 months or something, send them an email, send them some information. I'll send them some links promoting yourself. And eventually, if it's it's biblical, if it's a good seed, it kind of sticks. It comes back and it gets involved.
And so, how did I interrupted you? You were telling us the story of Michelle. So, how did that come back? What happened?
She just out of the blue sent me. I send out to anyone that I've showed the business to. I will quarterly send out that hasn't gotten, promotional things. I think I sent her a couple links from you recently. And an email came back saying timing was not right. Some circumstances had changed in her life. She's a single mother. She works for Amtrak, I believe, as a train operator out in California. And the timing was not right. The circumstances were there. She's looking for a supplementary income stream. And I think she recognizes that there's some global leaders like yourself in this that she can learn from. So. I don't really judge them, Judge. I can't tell you why they get involved. I just show the opportunity. I'm not wise enough. If I knew the answer to that one, I'd probably.
Now, this is intriguing. Most people who get into network marketing don't have the extensive business experience you have. In fact, could you
Sure.
give a little rundown and explain to everybody some of the places where you've worked? I guess you can't tell all of them because some have been governmental or whatever, but
Yeah.
those that you can talk about, could you give our listeners a little idea?
Sure. Yeah.
I'll
give you the really short story, Doug. The short version. I left high school in 1985 in California. And I joined the U.S. Marine Corps in aviation, went to the Naval Aircrew Candidate School in Pensacola, Florida, had a great time in the U.S. military. I met my wife who, in Santa Monica, California, actually in Malibu, out in Los Angeles area, immigrated to Scotland originally in 1989 and then permanently in 1993. 2 children over here, a boy and a girl, Joshua and Mackenzie Woodhall. They're both in university here in the UK. And the career background was I started off working for a company called TeleWest, which was in communications back in '95 over here. I think they're actually headquartered, TCI, they're headquartered in Colorado, is their global headquarters. Worked through a series of telecommunication companies, set up my own franchise, a company called Teleconnection, which was a business franchise from the States. Whilst I was actually still working with Dexter Yeager at the time in another networking company. And I then went to work, sold that company successfully to WorldCom in 1999 it was. Worked with Eli Masso through Freeway 100, which was a networking company throughout Europe and North America for a period of years. Worked for WorldCom for several years over here with Bernie Evers. Don't hold that against me. He was a good guy in his day. We did very well over here in Europe at WorldCom. I became the top salesperson out of 12,000 globally at WorldCom. Then they went through their Chapter 11 receivership in the U.S., and I then left WorldCom, went to work for Scottish Telecom at the time. Floated a company I mentioned previously called Zipcom PLC on the London Stock Exchange for $50 million. I then ended up, and this is a strange career change, I ended up around about mid-2005 into the security industry, which purely came through a headhunting exercise into a large global security contractor called G4S, and largest in the world. I now work for the largest defense and aerospace intelligence company in the world, in about 100 countries and 128,000 employees, as the head of a country for several countries. So, yeah, the background is diverse. It's a mix of corporate sales, corporate management, board level directorships, and network marketing. It's always been a flavor kind of throughout the years. You know, I've always had this attraction, but as I said earlier, not really as a big distributor, more in the back office side. So I'm really enthusiastic now. You know, I've come to this stage in my career where I'm thinking, you know, it's funny, the light bulb kind of comes on, you know, and you mentioned it earlier when I was laying in that hospital bed last year after that fall, the light bulb really does click where, you know, at my age, at 44 years old, you need to do something. You know, you need to get off your backside and actually do something for yourself, because there's no security in the corporate world. I enjoy what I do. I really do love what I do. It's as you mentioned earlier, I can't really discuss what we do, but it's very, you know, interesting work. It's satisfying work, but at the end of the day, can you do 20 years at it and draw your pension nowadays? That, you know, that worked for my father. My father worked for Bethlehem Steel. He worked there for 25 years in Northern California. My mother worked as a lawyer in California. They did very well, but that type of model, that life plan, I don't think really exists for my children, you know, let alone for me in my lifetime. It's a dangerous place to be at the top in the corporate world, especially in the global economic downturn that we're experiencing over here. Lloyd's TSB, the big bank in the UK, just announced 15,000 job losses yesterday in the United Kingdom. Westminster, the British government, has just announced over 100,000 job losses in the public sector. That comprises 60% of the GNP in Scotland at the moment, so it's a huge employer. There's job losses everywhere. I don't believe there's been a better time for good, solid, ethical network marketing companies to really have an opportunity that people are, you know, should be looking at nowadays.
Now, for those who aren't near computers right now and can't Google it, explain a little bit and remind everybody the whole Bernie Evers story, because he's a figure of international renown, and it was quite a controversy.
Yeah, Bernie. I met Bernie personally. I met him originally in the dinner party in London, in the Law Society in London in 1999, and he was the CEO of WorldCom, which was MCI WorldCom. Bernie's background was interesting. He was a basketball coach originally. He's a Canadian national from. He ended up living in Mississippi. He worked in the collegiate all-star basketball team as a coach. He built WorldCom literally in Jackson, Mississippi, originally on a business plan. The story goes on a napkin, you know, in a coffee house on a piece of paper. They had this idea of wholesaling global networks and buying up telecom providers and infrastructure in the U.S. They then came over to the U.K. in about 1997 when they came over to Europe, and they grew every single year that I was there. You know, doubling in size. At one time, they were the second largest global telecommunication company in the world, and they were trying to buy, if you remember, they were trying to buy U.S. Sprint. Had they bought that, I believe the U.S. Monopolies and Mergers Commission had put a stop to that. Had they bought it, they would have been the largest global provider in the world. But it was a great time in my life. It was absolutely fantastic. You know, the money was great. The trips were phenomenal. They sent my wife and I all around the world, and I've got nothing bad to say about WorldCom, but in the end, yeah, Bernie was brought up on a corporate fraud charge of $30 billion. They were literally moving assets from the asset column just over to the expenses column, or sorry, vice versa. And this was brought up to light to the Securities Commission in Wall Street by Anderson Consulting, which was actually their auditors, their accountants. And so Bernie went on trial. Scott Sullivan went on trial, who was another good friend of mine. Scott was the CFO of WorldCom. And the end result of that was he's now doing 25 years, I believe, to life in prison.
Wow.
For the fraud. He had at one time the largest private timber farm in northern Canada. He had a $400 million. You know, he's a very wealthy man, a very inspirational guy. But I think it's a good example of a guy who just kind of lost. Bernie's, whatever Bernie's, and I don't know what Bernie, the motives or what was done. I don't have any inside knowledge, but my personal belief after meeting the guy several times and working with him very closely in Europe was whatever he did wasn't for personal gain. He was trying to keep the company afloat with their share price in Wall Street. But it's a good example of you mentioned it last week in your interview on Watergate. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And I think he just lost track of right and wrong. But great time. So it was a good time working there. But he is, as I say, now paying for it. And I do believe that was the beginning. I mean, that was prior to Enron, if you remember, and that was the controversy that came out with Enron. And I do believe that was kind of the beginning in Wall Street of the global economic downturn. It was an example of companies that can really go wrong, and do things in the wrong way.
Amazing story. You got to do a book sometime of your whole
I'm
thing.
working on it.
Why would someone with your experience
Sure.
in major corporations still? I mean, I asked this. This was my very first question, but I don't know that I'm completely satisfied with the answer. Why would you get involved in network marketing when you know from experience that with network marketing you're starting out with just dollars a month, with small amounts of money?
Sure.
When you're spending $250,000 a year, that's what you're earning. So you got to get that back
or more
in network marketing or more. And it's going to take a little time to do it because you've had a lot of experience in network marketing. So you know what's involved. So can you give us elaborate any more than you have on?
Sure. I mean, there's multiple reasons, Doug. There's not just one specific reason, and it sounds rather corny, but one of the fundamental reasons is I love the people. I love the business model. I like it. I think it's what made America great at one point. I think the world needs it. I know it sounds a bit evangelical, but I think it's a really good way to the actual structure, the business model, is the way to go. The other reason is, as I mentioned earlier, I've got two children in university here, Mackenzie and Joshua, and my son's 21 years old, my daughter's 18, she just turned 18. And I look to the future, 5 years. As you know, my business is structured as a corporate entity with shareholding in both my children. And I look at, my son's studying physics, chemistry, and earth science. My daughter's studying psychology. And, I look at the opportunities for them in 5 years' time when they leave school with their master's or PhD, and what are they going to do? Hopefully the job market and career aspirations will change in 5 years' time. Maybe they won't. I mean, there are people over here in this country that in Scotland and the United Kingdom, education is free. University education. Well, it's not technically free. You pay for it out of your tax dollars. But, so as a consequence, you have a nation of highly educated people and not enough jobs when they finish university. So to answer your question, one of the reasons I'm building my two children, at the end of the day, if they don't, it's a plan B for them. And you mentioned it does take some time. It takes some work. It takes some a lot of work. 3 to 5 years to build a good solid residual income. But